It's not blurring, Maya.
What do you mean it's not blurring? That option is there in Zoom. Our call. He's already registered. Okay. Uh, uh, uh. Yeah. Uh, mm.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Akshay. How are things at home?
Fine, sir.
Hmm. How's your father?
Sir,
How is your father?
fine, sir. He is fine.
Where is your registration message?
I don't know, Maya.
There are messages.
I think it got deleted. Why?
You deleted it.
Good
I.
evening, sir.
Good evening. I might have. Why?
Why would you delete that?
I don't know. Because it that if I do it myself,
Fine, fine. Yeah. ALBH.
just hold on for a second, please. I'll be back. No, I had put it on pause actually
Okay.
because there's some confusion about getting a slot for um, vaccination. And apparently, I may have to go to Vikarabad to get it. I'm not getting it anywhere in Hyderabad.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's why I paused it. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, these have been cited as the grounds on which a nation state is formed. Okay. Um, in the context of the nation, it is loyalty considered to be like oneself. Okay. Uh, this can be primordial. That is right from the beginning of time, sorry. And also uh, something that happened in the modern period. When it comes to state, state is an institution which came into being in the modern period, and loyalty to that, or loyalty to it, is often called patriotism. Okay, this is what you have to remember, because I won't be able to keep this forever. Now, if you believe either primordially or what happened here? Why is this down here? Anyway. Okay. If you believe, I told you, none of these can be considered to be the basis of of a nation state, because of the fact that race, that what people once believed, that there are only three races: Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid. I told you that there are many more people who don't fit into those categories, and that is people like us. Where do we fit? We are not Caucasoid, we are not Mongoloid, we are not Negroid. So are we non-existent? And race has been used in order to mobilize only in the case of the Aryans, uh, Aryan and Aryan superiority by Hitler. Otherwise, there is no indication of racialism being anything to do with nation states. Ethnicities, I told you there are no more ethnicities left in this world. Okay, all populations have mixed. So there is only one species, and that is Homo sapiens. So that is not the basis. I told you language, there are countries like Belgium, and ethnicity. And if you're looking at the birth of the nation state, uh, you'll see that even if you agree to the Caucasoid thing, all Europeans are Caucasoid, then why are there so many different European states? Similarly, ethnicity, even if you say that it has something to do with Homo neanderthalensis, then all of them are, I'm sorry, all of them also have the same roots, in which case, sorry, um, in which case there should have been no different European nation states. And I told you language. How come you have two languages or rather one language for two nation states, as you see in the case of Belgium and France and Switzerland? Parts of it are French speaking. How come you have two or three again states, nation states, uh, which have languages, which have one language, which is German? It's spoken in Austria, it's spoken in Germany, and again in parts of Switzerland. So you have French Swiss, you have the German Swiss. Okay, so then you have Switzerland, which is also a nation state, and it has these three languages because there's also English there. Similarly, I gave you the example of Spain, where you have different languages apart from Spanish. You have the Valencian, or the pronunciation for that is actually Valencian, and then you have Basque and Basque, Basque and Catalan, Catalan. So, and that is one nation state called Spain. So, obviously, language is not. As far as culture is concerned, most of the European nations have a big similarity of culture. Okay. Shared social practices are there again among all the Europeans. And that's the whole idea on which they tried to build the European Union. Okay. They said we are all the same. So then obviously it means that none of these categories actually hold water. Uh, Nation, if you're talking about it, nation, and if you say that people are mobilized on the basis of a nation state, so to speak, then we have this, uh, we have to consider the situation as to why the nation states, if they are primordial, there are no nation states in ancient period. Okay. Nation states are those which have come into being only in the modern period. Okay, they have come into being. Maya, Maya, Maya. Can you get this? So, if you're looking at the institution of the nation state, why did it come into being only in the modern period? And that too, why did it come into being first in the European continent? That also includes British Isles. Why did it come up there? Okay, why not elsewhere? So that is what we need to answer. Maybe nations have been there before. Maybe there have been shared beliefs. But why did they never ever transform into nation states, and why were there no states? I told you that the state is associated with a certain type of private property system, because private property existed for quite a while. It was there in the 10th century, it was there in the 12th century CE, but yet there were no nation states. Okay, now if you look at Europe, you will see that Europe has two institutions, and I told you that individualism also is something that comes only in the modern period. So if you look at uh, the case of Europe, then you are looking at two very dominant institutions. One was the church. Okay, it was omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. So, omni is everything, including everything. It was present in all over Europe. It was the most powerful of all the social institutions, and it also was something which controlled knowledge. That's where the omniscient thing comes. Okay, so it controlled everything, and there were no freedoms of individuals for individuals. Then you have another body in the medieval period, which is called the feudal professional guild. Okay, guilds are a certain type of association, and you'll find this word being used even in the 19th century by a French uh, Marxist who believed in a certain form of Marxism, which he called syndicalism, and sometimes it's called guild socialism. Okay, and his name was Georges Sorel. Okay, and so there was this person who talked about that. What we'll talk about Sorel when we talk about Marx, not now. So there was this feudal professional guild. And what is the importance of the feudal professional guild? The feudal professional guild held a pretty, what should I say, pretty much of a control, pretty much of a control over the lives of individuals. So if you were born into a certain professional guild, say a guild if your father, the mother is of no consequence because it's a patriarchal society. So if your father is a carpenter, okay, then you automatically became a part of that guild. You became a part of the uh, guild of carpenters. If your father was a blacksmith, you will see that you became a blacksmith. By default, that's your profession. Goldsmith, any of these, potter. Okay. And you'll still find these in the surnames. Okay. You have people who have surnames like Goldsmith or just Smith. Instead of blacksmith, people used to just say Smith. Potter is a surname. J.K. Rowling made truckloads, is not the word. She made several bulk container ships worth of money by writing utter rubbish under the name of Harry Potter. So there it is, Potter. And you have people who are called Carpenter. John Carpenter, a great filmmaker. And so you have these kind of names which denote that they once belonged to these professional guilds. Right now, the feudal professional guild is also a system of control. It is a system of control because it doesn't allow you to move from one guild into another guild. Technically speaking, this is closer to the Portuguese word caste than to the what was once Varna system and became Jati system in India. Okay, more than being applicable to the Indian Varna and Jati systems, it is actually much more applicable to the feudal professional guild. It was a caste system. Caste because it's a closed group. Membership to that is not open. Okay? Membership to that is not open. So you couldn't leave a guild and say, a professional guild, and say, I'll go to another one. That is more interesting. No, there wasn't that possibility. The guild to which you belonged wouldn't let you go to any other guild. That's the first thing. But suppose you told members of your guild that do what you can, I'm leaving you, and you go, then the guild that you want to get into won't accept you there. They won't accept you there. So these are mechanisms of control. The church is one mechanism of control. Excuse me a second, please. Sorry. Sorry. So if you're looking at the church, because of the practice of the confession, it the priests knew about everybody, and they used that information to blackmail people to get favors out of them. And so the church had become corrupt. And around the 15th century, due to wrong policies of taxation, which was akin to extortion, you find that both the feudal peasants and artisans, the people that I talked about, carpenters, blacksmiths, all these are artisans, okay, became poor, and they were the producers of social wealth. They were the producers of the social wealth, and they basically they were the producers of social wealth, and they basically uh, were not in a position to pay taxes anymore and do agriculture or do something with their artisan skills. So there was no more production of social wealth, and this culminated in the impoverishing, or impoverishment is a better word, impoverishment of all people, including the feudal lords and the kings. Everybody became poor. It was akin to what happened with the Soviet Union. Okay? The Soviet Union, of course, is a piece of history as far as you people are concerned. But the Soviet Union is something which was a part of my present at one time. Okay, so the Soviet Union refers to the union of Soviet and Socialist republics. And does anyone know how many republics were there in the USSR?
15, sir.
How much?
15, 1, 5.
Well, it's close. It's actually 16. Okay. And you see, this was a superpower. This was a superpower, and in 1 year, this superpower ceased to exist. It ceased to exist. It broke into 16 republics. Okay, so Russia was the biggest. Ukraine, Belarusia became Belarus, and then you have the what are now called the Central Asian republics: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. So, why did they disintegrate? They disintegrated because of poverty. Remember that America and the Europeans were originally wealthy countries. They were very wealthy countries. They had capitalism, and therefore their development was also far, far ahead of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, though it was imperialism, uh, look at Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all of these countries, even today, they are all backward, extremely backward areas. Okay. And it didn't see capitalist development. Russia also did not have capitalist development. Okay. And they went into an arms race with the United States of America. They wanted to show them that they could do with communism or whatever they called it, what America's did with capitalism. The result was that too much of spending on defense, and due to this too much of spending, they basically they just ended up with no wealth. You had to stand in line. The inflation of the Russian ruble, the currency, it went up to 1500%. 1500% was the inflation, and you had to stand for 8 or 9 hours in a line to buy a loaf of bread, not get it free, to buy. Such was the poverty of the Soviet Union. Okay, and Noam Chomsky says that at that time the Soviet Union took its rightful place in the third world. Okay, he says all the republics which were propped up as superpowers, as the USSR, they all went to where they actually belonged, which was the third world, because there was no development except for military technology. And this military technology was also something that was usually stolen from different Western countries, Western European countries, and even America. Even that was initially stolen through the intelligence. They had, just like America had has CIA, they had what was called the KGB, which stood for Komitet Gossedienststevenoy Bezopesnotsy. So don't worry about it. It was their intelligence agency. They stole technology and they were able to build up some of that because of uh, stealing some of the technology. But after that, today India is more prosperous even compared to Russia. India is more prosperous. Please remember that. And we were a third world country. Now there is no third world because there is no first and second world. So if somebody tells you, talks about the third world, please tell them there is no third world. Okay, please tell them there is no third world because which are the first and second world countries? Capitalist countries were called first world, socialist countries were called the second world, and those which didn't have much development or had underdevelopment, uh, these were called third world countries. Okay, but we are no longer in the third world countries. We have been taken off the list of countries that have high levels of poverty. China has become an economic superpower. It is now challenging the United States of America. So if you look at all these things, what is it that you find? Okay, when there is no social wealth, countries will disband, nobody will have nationalism, nothing like that. The funny thing is when European Union came into being, it came into being at the time when the Soviet Union was disintegrating. Why? Because levels of prosperity were very high in Western Europe. So they formed the European Union to leverage their economic power together against not the USSR that was disintegrating, but against America. Okay, so what does that show? Nation states can come together if there is economic prosperity. Nation states don't come, they can break apart if there is no prosperity. If there is prosperity, they come together. If there is none, then they break. Now let's try to understand what happened in European history in the modern period, the beginning, 15th century. With feudalism weakening, is that the correct spelling?
Yes, sir.
Weakening? Hmm?
Yes,
Sorry, Akshay?
yes, sir. Correct, sir.
I don't know. Just with feudalism weakening, A new society and a new economy appeared or took shape in Europe. This is the capitalist system and a capitalist and a, what should we say, and a system that, no, let me not, why am I typing everything? The capitalist system came into being. Now, there are different phases of capitalism. The first phase is mercantile capitalism. The second phase is industrial capitalism. And the third phase, people said, was finance monopoly capitalism. So initially, all these travelers, Marco Polo and the other Europeans, what were they doing? Why was the Silk Route there to both India? Why did Vasco da Gama, why did Columbus set out in search of a sea route to India? Because the land route had been blocked off by the Ottoman Turks. And since the Ottoman Turks blocked the land route, these people had to come round. So Columbus ended up in the Caribbean region and thought he had reached, what should I say, uh, India. And that's why the people, though it was Amerigo Vespucci, 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 uh, who ultimately found the American continents, and it is the name America comes from Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo became America, and so the two continents, the North American continent and the South American continent, these were discovered, and they are they came to be called the New World. Even today, for the Europeans, the whole world is Eurocentric. They think that the old world is Europe and the new world is Americas. Okay? They don't even count us. The Chinese, who were way, way older and had civilizations which none of the Europeans had. Okay, so that is Eurocentrism. Okay, so you will see that why did people come in search of India, China? Why did they want this? They came here because they wanted markets. Why did they want these markets? Because if you look at the theory of capitalism, see, this is the old this thing. Later on, now people talk about different forms of economy. I'll talk about that later, not now. The search for markets, before I go there, let me tell you that if you read Adam Smith, Adam Smith talks about free market, okay? And he talks about competition and no price fixation. He's talking about all these things. The word free figures very prominently in the modern period. In the modern period, you find these things. First and foremost, you have free thinking. Then you have freedom of speech. Then you have free will and free market. The church punished people if it found somebody, uh, if it actually found somebody contradicting it. Okay? The church believed that the knowledge that was there in the Bible was revealed by God Himself, and that is why you cannot question that knowledge. Okay? And anybody who indulged in free thinking was immediately branded as a person who was under the influence of the fallen angel Lucifer, called Satan, corruption of Arabic shaitan, and also the devil and the beast. All these are names given to Lucifer, right? So you were called a heretic. Heresy, Heresy, is lack of belief in the Bible or contradicting it. And if you didn't have belief in the Bible, you were a heretic, you were under the influence of the devil. I think I told you the story of Galileo. If you look at the story of Galileo, Galileo, though he was right about the heliocentric theory of the universe, he apologized to the church and said, I'm wrong. I am under the influence of, I'm absolutely under the influence of, what should I say, uh, of the devil. Okay. So he was pardoned, but he was shut out. He was completely shut out. and shut out from the rest of the world, because they saw in him uh, the possibility of influencing the world wrongly. Okay, so if you look at these things, what becomes obvious is that there is no freedom of thought. There is no freedom of speech, because you cannot contradict things. There is no freedom or a free will because of the feudal guilds, professional guilds. They didn't let you do what you wanted to do. And there was no free market, because in the feudal period, it was the king and the feudal lords who took bribes from various people, producers of products, and designated certain areas as market yards. Not only did they designate physical locations as market yards, they also said they also made an inventory of what could be sold in a market yard. So you could have a market yard right next to your house, but if that market yard didn't allow you to sell the product that you made, then you had to go wherever in search of a market yard where you could go and select your and sell your products. And because bribes were paid and because the people had to make profits, it was up to the feudal kings to basically tell people to basically tell people, uh, how much is a minimum price. So there was a price fixation. Now, Adam Smith contradicts all this. He says there should be a free market. You can set up a free market, you can set up a market anywhere you want, anywhere it is possible. And in every market yard, you can sell whatever products you want. People will decide how much your product is worth. You quote a price. If they think it is worth that, they'll pay. If they don't think it is worth it, they won't pay. And he encouraged competition so that the consumer will benefit. Okay, the consumer will benefit because you will have to make your product superior to, qualitatively superior to, similar products that are being sold by others, and uh, the consumer gets to choose from whom to buy and how much to pay. Okay, so if you look at all these things, what you find is that the modern period inaugurates free thinking. Somebody, yeah, thank you. So free thinking started because the church also became weak thanks to the Reformation uh, and Martin Luther. Freedom of speech. Don't call it free speech, please. Okay, because free speech was something that was used for the first time in the Declaration of Independence, which was drafted, the American Declaration of Independence. And there, the phrase free speech was used by Thomas Jefferson. And what he meant by free speech was that America would have the freedom to choose. Okay, it would have the freedom to choose to negotiate trade with whoever it wanted to. The British sovereign will not control it anymore. That is where he used the term free speech. So free speech is used more in the context of countries uh, having the right to negotiate with any other country of their choice regarding matters of trade. So please don't call it free speech. A lot of people write articles in newspapers saying free speech, free speech. That's not what it should be. It is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, actually. More than speech, it is freedom of expression of whatever you want to express. You can think freely and express your thoughts freely. Okay? Free will. You can decide what you want to do. You can actually decide what is it that interests you, what you want to do, how you want to go about doing it. So all these things came up in the modern period along with the nation state. Now, anybody could become an investor and have private property. So you have the concept of laissez faire. What is laissez faire? Anyone? Akshay Garu?
Free market.
Uh-huh.
Free market.
Not free market. It actually literally means leave things as they are. Don't interfere. Yep. You're saying something, Padma?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Leave alone and let alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Leave things as they are. Leave alone. That's what it means. Okay. So you had laissez faire economy. You had a laissez faire society. You had a laissez faire nation state. And this is also the inauguration of
Sir, is it related with individualism?
absolutely. That's why I said inauguration of individualism. It is related. Okay. The individual having been subjected to so many different forms of control for centuries was suddenly free to do what he or she wanted to do. And therefore, this is the inauguration of individualism. Okay, the initial forms of individualism were not liberal. When I teach you the contractualists, I will talk about that in detail. Okay, when I talk about the contractualists, I'll talk about that because Hobbes is an individualist, but is only a proto-liberal, a prototype of a liberal. He's not a liberal thinker. John Locke is the first liberal thinker, first political economist. Okay, after individualism, came liberalism. Okay, liberalism, simply put, is tolerance to opposition. Okay, people tolerating opposition to their ideas. But it also talks about settling who is right through a process of a dialogue. Okay, you engage with each other in a situation where you speak and you try to prove, if you find opposition, you try to prove that you are right. Your opponent will try to prove that he's right. Ultimately, logic will triumph, and whoever is more logical will be proved right. I'll stop here today with the story of the nation states. Okay, and I'll continue with it tomorrow. I think we can finish this tomorrow. Uh, and so, any questions? Madam Padma said some of you wanted to ask questions. You wanted to, even if you want to ask in Telugu, that's fine.
Sir, that was for our regular classes.
Not for this.
I don't think so because not many of us are here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody, any questions?
Sir, what is difference between due process of law and procedure established by law?
Sorry?
What is difference between due process of law and procedure established by law?
Due process of law and procedure established by law. Have you been following the E-Teller Rajender?
Yes, sir.
Mm, the court passed strictures against the district collector and the chief minister. What did it say? On what grounds did it pass strictures?
What is meant by strictures, sir?
Strictures is it condemned them. It said that it said something like, was the district collector sitting in the car and deciding how much land was occupied? And it asked the chief minister and the other departments that were involved if they had informed the person whose properties they were going to basically check to find out if he had encroached. Was he told that they will be uh, was he told that they would be what conducting this kind of thing? Was he informed of it?
No, sir.
Huh. So that is not following the, what is the second thing that you said?
Procedure established by law.
Procedures established by law. Okay. Procedures established by law are those which uh, basically are the ones that one has to adhere to. Okay. So the law says, like for example, if I am not doing my work, then first I have to be given a show cause notice. Okay, you have not done your work, or you have done something which you shouldn't have done. How did you go about doing this, and why did you go about doing this? What is your justification? So first I have to be given a show cause notice. If my answers are not satisfactory, then the second step is the issuance of a memorandum saying that you are in breach of rules. So, do you have any reason to stop us from taking action against you? And the third step will be the taking of action. That is the way in which you say that this is the procedure established. Okay, so that the person or a party, whatever it is, gets a chance to defend themselves right in the beginning, and not after you say that you have done all these things and then say that you are responsible for this. Okay, so that is following the established procedures of law. Due process of law. Okay, due process of law is the this thing. What should we say? The process of law. Okay, which is considered to be due in, like you say, you are due to pay your fees by tomorrow. Okay, so a due process of law is a process of law which the courts have to adhere to. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because the courts are not independent of the process of law. They have to follow the due process of law,
Yes, sir.
the court. So that is applicable to the courts, whereas this is more general.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other? Kalpana Garu,
Sir,
ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా అండి?
no, sir. No, sir.
యూ అండర్స్టూడ్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్, అంతా అర్థమైందా?
నేర్చుకుంటున్నాను సార్. ఐఎమ్ తెలుగు మీడియం.
అవును, అందుకనే తెలుగులో మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. అంతా అర్థమైందా మీకు?
అంటే మీరు చెప్పింది మళ్ళీ ఇక్కడ తెలుగులో చదువుతున్నాను సార్, బుక్స్ అట్లా అర్థమవుతుంది.
మీరు ఇంగ్లీష్ నేర్చుకోవాలమ్మా.
నేర్చుకుంటా. ఓకే.
ఇంగ్లీష్ ఇస్ నాట్, అదేం పెద్ద డిఫికల్ట్ లాంగ్వేజ్ కాదు అది. మన లాంగ్వేజెస్ ఆర్ ఫార్ మోర్ అడ్వాన్స్డ్ అండ్ కాంప్లికేటెడ్ దెన్ ఇంగ్లీష్. English is a relatively simple language.
నేర్చుకుంటా సార్.
నేర్చుకోండి అమ్మా.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.
రైట్. మీకేమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే అవి మీరు నేర్చుకునేదాకా తెలుగులో అడగచ్చు. తెలుగులో డౌట్స్ అడగచ్చు, నేను చెప్తాను. బట్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు లెర్న్ ఇంగ్లీష్.
ఓకే.
భయపడద్దు, అదేం పెద్ద, ఇట్ ఈస్ నాట్ అంటే అదేం పెద్ద గొప్ప ఇది కాదు, రైట్?
As
So, Madam Padma, have I spoken too much today?
No, sir.
Hmm? Or did I speak too little today? Hmm?
It was just needed. Not too more, not too less.
Okay. It's like the Jeffrey Archer novel.
Uh-huh.
What is it called? Not a penny more or not a penny less.
Yes.
So it's like a Jeffrey Archer novel. Okay.
Mhm.
So thank you. I have come up to your expectations today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So Akshay, any other doubts?
No, sir.
No. Huh? You are not regretting coming to my classes?
Why should I regret, sir?
You never know. I talk too much. That is a problem, no?
No, sir.
Okay. The others, are they there or have they left? Most of them have left.
No, sir. They are there.
They're there. Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow I'll pick up capitalism and how it is through capitalism. So this is the preview. Okay. I'll pick up liberalism just a little bit after that. I finish with tomorrow. I'll pick up capitalism, because along with individualism and liberalism, another ism that came into being is capitalism, and that capitalism requires these freedoms. Okay, it requires these freedoms. And so tomorrow we'll talk about how capitalism was responsible for the formation of nation states. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.